Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. I'm Andrew Sumner, and my guest this evening is one of Forbidden Planet's best-selling comics authors, the one and only Brian K. Vaughan. How are you, mate?
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for the kind words.
Oh, they're all true, and thank you very much for joining me. So actually, you're here to talk about your new graphic novel from Image, which has just dropped in this incredibly beautiful package.
Oh, thank you.
Look at
I got
that,
one
eh?
too.
See, there we go, 6,000 miles away, and we both got one. Very good. But it's absolutely beautiful. It's a wonderful book. Spectators with you. And I've always wondered, if I'm pronouncing Niko's name correctly without any prompting. I would say it's Niko Henrichon. Is that right?
I think that's right. I was just asking Nico myself to double check because I think we slightly anglicized it. I think they probably dropped the H as Henrichon in
Oh,
the
yeah, okay,
French, but
makes sense.
he's fine with anything. So he's a kind chap.
Very good. Yeah, I was trying to get my on correct, but I forgot about the silent H.
That's right.
Tripped up at last. So, what can you tell me, and what can you tell the Forbidden Planet faithful uh, about Spectators?
Yeah, well, I have wanted to do another true proper graphic novel, not just a collection of monthly comics, but something that was meant to be read, in one beginning, middle, and end collected format. Ever since I did that the last time on Pride of Baghdad, which is a book I can't believe came out now 20 years ago almost.
Amazing.
Nico. And so, yeah, I've had this idea for this story for a long time. A story about two ghosts from different eras haunting a terrifying future, and the sort of very voyeuristic specters who are just interested in watching our lives as if it were reality television. And yeah, I knew I wanted it to be in this format, and I knew I wanted to work with Nico, who has, ever since Pride of Baghdad, I think maybe been pigeonholed as an artist who draws incredible animals, which he does, but he also draws spectacular science fiction settings, beautiful human beings. So yeah, Nico and I wanted to work together, and yeah, through this Substack opportunity, where we got a very generous grant to, over the course of a few years, just put out a few pages of a comic at a time. I thought, oh, this is finally the opportunity to do something that's really hard to do this day and age, a full color, 300 plus page graphic novel. And yeah, with no limitations on content, most importantly, because I think we really wanted to push the boundaries and tell a story that was very much about sex and violence and the different ways we watch the two. And so I can't believe after 3 years of work, we're finally here, but it's done.
I mean, something that really struck me is that for all that the book feels very personal on some levels and very close up, it's played against these often widescreen vistas, sort of dystopian future vistas, beautifully rendered. Yeah, with the and it feels so close, it feels so immediate, but it feels so cinematic at the same time. Was that a deliberate thing for you guys?
Thank you. Yeah, very much so. That this is the kind of storytelling that I love to do and is so difficult to do in monthly serialized comics where every page is a real premium and you're just trying to cram in as much information into each page. And here to really have the breathing room to have long moments of silence or just quiet conversations or multiple what we call double page spreads. Yeah, it was something that I haven't even been able to do in a long form book like Saga. And it really was this, yeah, this unlimited canvas that Nico and I were excited to play with. Not just each page, but thinking about how would this story read as a whole, and how could we do something that would be at once very familiar to people who like comics, but also a slightly different reading experience than hopefully you've ever had before.
Yeah, I think that is very well said. To talk about the creative process you just alluded to, how long did the project, once you and Nico knew that you were doing it, and you had the freedom of support to be able to do it the way you wanted, how long did it take you to begin, and how long did it take you to put it together?
Yeah, I'd say there was probably 6 months from the time that Substack reached out and said, "Do you have something to do in this strange, untested format, a project that you would be able to put out maybe just a few pages at a time every week?" And I'd had this idea in the back of my head. So, yeah, probably 6 months from them coming to us to reaching out to Niko saying, "Is this something we could do? Is it feasible for you to hand paint this many pages? How many years would it take us?" So, yeah, 6 months from them approaching us to the starting gun going off, and then a little over 3 years from
Yeah.
the time I wrote page one, panel one, till the time Niko turned in his final hand painted page.
Yeah, wow. I mean that is, I guess that you must experience work having the freedom to work that way. It must feel to a degree in such a deadline related industry that we all work in. Everybody who publishes comic books like I do, used to the grind of it and the
Yes.
joy of the pages coming in, but also the immense pressure of hitting those deadlines month after month. And you start with your artistic intent, and then you've got like the shotgun of commerce jammed into your ear. You've got to
Yeah.
deal with that. But to not have that, and to have that, I guess, progressive joy of watching it unfold at the pace that you want, that must have been a novel experience, right?
It was very strange, but the Substack of it all, having a small select audience to be with us for every step of the journey helped because
Yeah.
the experience you describe is much closer to Pride of Baghdad, the last time we did a book where we really worked for years at our own pace, but it was really in secrecy with only our editor and then Vertigo Comics. And it was a little harrowing to work on something because I was used to doing something like Why the Last Man, which, as you say, you do have that gun to your head, the pressure, but you also have the benefit of, oh, every 30 days, people get to check in and your audience says, "Oh, I like what you're doing. We're here for this and we'll come back for more." With Pride of Baghdad, we had no idea if what we were doing would work or find an audience. So with Spectators, having this small group stick with us every week, even if it was only 2 or 3 pages that we were giving them, was kind of the benefit of having, yes, an audience cheering you on, saying, "We like this, keep going," but also a little bit more freedom of knowing this isn't over till we say it's over, and we can take as long as we want to make it right.
One of the things I loved about Spectators, and I'm very mindful of the fact that, as with all truly unique projects, it can be difficult to have this conversation without actually spoiling what the book is, which I'm really not going to try and do, and I know you won't want to do. But it has a brilliantly visceral opening, which massively sets the tone for what the book is going to be. And what I love about it is from that visceral opening, your narrative just keeps on doubling down and doubling down. So, can you talk a little bit about that, in as much as you feel comfortable doing so?
Yeah,
About
sure. Uh, I think the one thing that you always hear about the benefit of working in comics instead of film and television is that you have this allegedly unlimited budget where you're only limited by your imagination and your artistic collaborators' willingness to draw anything. But I'd say the real benefit is getting to do subject matter and themes that you would not normally be able to do
yeah,
in other visual entertainment. And something I've been wanting to write about because it's been in the forefront of my mind as an American and as a parent and as a human being is gun violence. And anytime I've tried to pitch a project involving gun violence in any capacity to film or television, they always say, "We understand this is a subject matter that needs to be discussed, but we can't do it because inevitably we're going to release this project on a day where there will be a mass shooting in the United States. And then, for we have to uh, pull the project and not do it." And I was like, this is depressing
yeah,
that we have a real world situation that we are unable to discuss in fiction. And with comics, and particularly the way this project started, it was talk about whatever you want to talk about. And so, yes, I knew Yeah, this was going to open with a graphic, horrific bit of gun violence, and that the book would only get more complicated from there in terms of subject matter. And yeah, sure enough, we've released the book this week, and there's been horrific gun violence that everyone is talking about here in the States. So it is inevitable, but I'm grateful. This is why I write, is not just to be an entertainer, but to delve into my own fears and misgivings about existence.
Yeah, I think that's very apparent, and the form you've chosen does indeed feel very free from the pressures, those pressures of conformity, which also allows you to, because another thing I love about the book is there's some wild mixing of tones as it goes along. Yeah, and which I very much enjoyed. So, one minute you're embedded in that, whoa, this is heavy. And then there's equally heavy things that are very amusing that happen.
Thank you. That is life. It always
Yeah.
feels like to me is that is any given day is that it is there's wild tonal shifts from absolute horror to gallows humor to sexiness to but yes, that film and television really likes you to narrow down to, well, what is the tone of this thing? And so yes, to have that freedom to get to discuss whatever we want to and to take those hard shifts from one page to the next. It was a joy.
Yeah, I've really felt that, and you've touched upon the sexuality inherent within the book and the sensual experience inherent within the book. That to me is actually quite an unusual experience to get from a graphic novel that's published in America by an American company. We're certainly, the prudish nature, if you will, of my American cousins. So it's something that we often talk about societally, on this side of the Atlantic.
Yeah.
So what was that like for you? Because I think the only book I can think about that I've really enjoyed how these issues have been dealt with is completely different with Sex Criminals, right?
Oh
Which
yeah.
is but and I thought that was a very successful at what it did. But I think you're really doing something that's really quite unusual for American graphic novels with Spectators.
It is, yes, something Nico and I wanted to discuss is the very different ways that we watch sex and violence. And for Nico, who lives in France these days, it was great to work with a collaborator who said, "Oh, I have no concerns about drawing sexuality. That's fine." And it's oftentimes hard to find collaborators who feel that way here in the States. And it is strange that we have here a bottomless appetite for violence, that
Yeah,
we love watching it in our fiction, that even in kids' movies, when my kids were little, I would show them things that have, graphic limbs being ripped off or beheadings. And it's okay. We love it. And whereas any amount of sexuality is viewed as yeah, completely taboo and forbidden. And it doesn't mean we're not watching it. If the internet statistics are to be believed, Americans love watching sex. They just do it secretly
yeah,
and shamefully and privately. And they like a firewall between that and their fiction. So, yeah, you have the genre fiction now that feels very neutered and completely asexual,
yeah.
but with endless violence. And I thought there's a story here.
Yeah, it is super interesting, isn't it? Because I think there's a after the new cinema of the 70s, there's less sex in mainstream cinema than I think there's ever been. Not even
It
somebody like Tarantino. There's not really any physical interaction of that nature. Tons of violence, as you say.
Yes, and yeah, I think this does have an impact on a society, and it's a part of the book that we talk about. It's something I stole from a friend of mine who was showing Terminator, the classic James Cameron film, to his teenage daughter. I think she was 13 at the time, and he's like, "This is seminal filmmaking. We have to watch this." And sat down, showed four-fifths of the movie, watched it all, and then got to the end of the movie where there's a sex scene between Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese, and my friend was like, "Ooh, we better fast forward past this part. It's a little adult." And my friend's wife came into the room and was like, "Hang on, you just let our daughter watch endless amounts of shotgun blasts of people being murdered in cold blood. And then you get to a scene of not just consensual lovemaking between characters, but it is the point of the movie. It's the inciting incident
Yeah.
where the character is born and great. And this you're telling her is something that you can't be watched. And I was like, that definitely does distill what I wanted to talk about in here and our uncomfortability with sexuality and yeah, our like I said, our limitless appetite to watch gun violence. It's strange.
Right. Do you have any thoughts about what it is within the American experience that has delivered that? And because when I think back throughout the 20th century, which was the American century for sure, that was there the whole time. So you have the Hays Code in the 30s, but at the same time you have Tom and Jerry wreaking untold violence upon each other. Sure, it's a cartoon, but those cartoons are heavy when you watch them now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of damage going on there.
Yes.
But there's no human sensuality anywhere.
Yeah, I think when I was young, it felt like our genre fiction had whether it was Starship Troopers or
Yeah,
RoboCop, there would be nudity, there would
yeah,
be sex. And so I think there is an element of the corporatization of film that there's this idea that now, oh, we're going to take this intellectual property, but it must become four quadrant, that it has to be, we have to have it for children, for their parents, for grandparents to all watch together. And I don't know where the split happened, though, that it was decided that, oh, this four quadrant entertainment can involve violence. We like it in our football. We like it in our sports. We like it in our social justice. But yeah, I think it was just decided we're going to be leaving money on the table if we put sex in this. It's going to make certain people uncomfortable. And yeah, it just perhaps becomes a self-perpetuating thing where people get used to watching stories that don't have it and they get uncomfortable when they see it. People, yeah, readers all the time in a comic book like Saga that has sex, they will say, what is with the gratuitous sex scenes? Or why must you put your kinks into this book? And they never say, what is with the gratuitous violence? And why are you trying to show off how tough you are? That it's odd that people are like, this is part of their story, even though I have never been involved in a fist fight in my life. And I have written hundreds of action-packed fight scenes. But and not to brag, but I've experienced a bit of human sexuality in
yeah.
my life. That
Wow.
feels a bit more normal, and it is still wildly uncomfortable for some people. Not everyone, and it's been nice, particularly with Spectators, that I think people are. And I went to see Sinners,
Yeah.
which is a movie that came out, and the sense of palpable relief in the audience when there were characters, adults talking about sex. That I think the audience was like, we have missed this. So I don't think I'm alone in saying I'm an adult and I want to watch stories for adults, but it is not the norm at the moment.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And of course, screen violence and comic book page violence, generally speaking, which is action rather than violence. You never really it's not violence in the true human sense, where you watch somebody you're in a bar and you watch somebody get punched in the face. It's actually horrible. It's horrible to experience. It's not great for them, but it's unnerving, isn't it? Chilling. Just the most basic form of violence is chilling in real life. And yet
It's
we're
true. Yeah,
surrounded by entertainment. No,
yeah,
please.
no, it is
Yeah.
there. But having an incredible painter like Niko, it was interesting to see whether it's the violence or the sexuality, there's something that makes it, both things I think can be quote unquote pornographic.
Yeah.
But yeah, having his just translation of the real world makes even these things that are viscerally difficult to look at when it's filmed, even when it's obviously fake, that bit of remove, I was very grateful for what we were able to look at because it's through Nico's eyes.
What was it you were exploring with the voyeurism aspect of the book, which is hard baked into the characters for a specific reason?
Yeah, I think I wanted to um take a look at myself and have myself to have the reader be a character in this story, just like the protagonists are, that we are just spectators, unable to influence what we're watching, and yet we can't look away. And yeah, I think that's a very interesting character is us. Why are we doing this? Why do we choose to watch what we watch when we sit down on the couch, when we open a book? And to have two characters who are really, truly just haunting this world, that I wanted it to be not like the movie Ghost. They couldn't, if they worked just hard enough, knock over a lamp or say boo. They can't do anything. And that's, was a fun challenge to me to have characters who it feels like the stakes are so low for them that they're already dead. We know, something worse can't happen to them, and we know they can't have an impact on what they're watching. But it seemed to feel to me that there was still a story to be told there. There's something that was very relatable and interesting and would hopefully help me understand why do I watch the things I watch.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, that's interesting. You mentioned Niko in passing there, and have throughout the conversation. The artwork in this book is so wonderful because it's so many things all at the same time, and it's great close up. It's great far away. The vista's great, as I mentioned before. But I really love some of the scenes of the ghost fraternity, if you will, uh, watching upon the world, gazing upon the world of the future. Um, what did it feel like watching him illustrate that and have it come alive in front of you?
Is incredible. I mean, it never gets old as a comic writer to, yeah, dash off something in a few sentences and to see it come back so fully formed. But yeah, the amount of detail that Niko puts in, and knowing that he's not working digitally, nothing against, I have obviously amazing collaborators who work digitally, but that when he would pull back to a cityscape and it's got hundreds of ghosts from hundreds of different eras, and then also in the background, there are hundreds of buildings, and each building has 100 windows in it. And you can sometimes see what's happening in each of those windows. That, yes, this is what I love about comics is the participatory nature of being the reader, that is not passive, that you're not watching film where the editor and the director are in control of the pacing, that you get to decide how quickly you want to read this. And you can burn through this book in probably an hour and a half if you want to. And you can also luxuriate in it in a long weekend, and inviting the audience to participate that way is what Niko's artwork does. And it just blows me away. It is so much more spectacular than I ever imagined it would be. And he does it every single panel of every page. It's wild.
I think it is a word often I often think of when I see his work because it's rich. Yeah, I mean, if you his use of color is amazing in this book as well, he's so inventive with it. I think, and changes the pace so often.
It is something we decided early on that usually when you have a ghost story, it's the ghosts who are washed out, are sepia toned, interacting in our world. And we're like, well, what if we flipped it? And the kind of sadness of, oh, these spirits have departed this plane of existence. And so now they're just watching us like an old movie, that we're in black and white, but they're the vibrant ones in color. It was a very fun reversal. And he just, because he has such an incredible sense of colors, palette is so great, but he also draws such beautiful black and white work, that to get to have both, it really was a very interesting experience.
No, that really leaps off the page. And Fonografiks, can you talk a bit about their involvement? Because this is something that I find is often not covered in, conversations about the
Yeah,
fabric.
thanks. No, a Fonografiks is a code name. I would tell you his real name, but I think he's somewhat private about it. But it sounds like, oh, this is a lettering robot or a studio full of people, but it's just one guy, and a terrific guy. And he has been our letterer on Saga for over a decade now. And yeah, just extremely thoughtful artist himself. I picked him for Saga because I'd seen he was designing just for fun some alternate covers for Ex Machina, my old Wildstorm comic, and his sense of design is so beautiful. And yeah, he designed the logo for this the cover, which is so
Yeah.
beautiful, and yeah, the font inside is all him, and yeah, the subtlety of what he did, that he would have the our ghosts are speaking, and their dialogue is sort of fully inked. And then when we're eavesdropping on the living world, their dialogue is just slightly grayscaled, not enough that you would skip over it as a reader, but just sort of subconsciously that it's almost, it gives you the sense that you're eavesdropping on someone. And just that level of detail and thoughtfulness is what he puts into Saga. And I was like, oh, it's the only person I could work with for this book. So thank you for asking about him. He's definitely an unsung hero and an unsung letterer in this business, where sometimes flashier letterers get more attention, but he is just so readable. I have a hard time picturing my dialogue in anyone else's voice.
I love hearing you say that because I'm a huge fan of his work, and actually his versatility reminds me of somebody who's similar but different from me. Is Abe Cannigson, who was Eisner's Letter on the Spirit. Yeah, and there's a fundamental part of that strip in the way that Fonografiks is for you. Yeah,
I
to
love
me,
that.
he's your Abe Cannigson, if you will.
That's fantastic. I'm sure he would love to hear that comparison. I certainly do. Thanks.
And it's my pleasure, Brian. And before we close out, you mentioned in passing some of his involvement with Ex Machina, which you may recall when we corresponded once. I was telling you that my dad has read, who's in his mid-90s, has read virtually no comic books in his life, and he's read the whole of Ex Machina twice.
That's wild. That means so
Yeah.
much to me. That is very sweet to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, no, he is Liverpool in the north of England's number one Mitchell 100 fan.
That
And the
is
number two Mitchell 100 fan is me, by the way. So,
uh,
it's
yeah.
that's a phenomenal book, and makes me wonder if would you mind coming back sometime and we could talk about your back catalogue maybe?
Sure, I would love that. And yeah, Ex Machina is to hear that was a book that, writing it, being a New Yorker after 9/11, I was like, this book is so sort of niche and inside and of its time that it will never have an audience outside of a handful of political wonks in New York City. So to hear that it reached all the way over to Liverpool is incredible. And yes, I love that book. And yeah, it's yes, thank you. Anytime you'd like to talk about any of my past stuff, I would be honored.
Brilliant, mate, because the thing about your work is at Forbidden Planet, we sell a ton of comic books, but we consistently sell your work in back issue form. And you're one of our most reordered comics authors for the breadth of your work. And you'll find every issue of Saga, on the shelves at Forbidden Planet. You'll find paper, you'll find everything, mate. You know what I mean? So that'd be awesome. I look forward to chatting to you about it. Thank you for joining me, virtually
Pleasure.
across the Atlantic this evening.
Thank you for the thoughtful questions. Yeah, and thanks for the love for Spectators. I'm really proud of it. So I hope people enjoy it.
It's a lovely piece of work. And Spectators, which Brian and I have been talking about, can be ordered from the links attached to our conversation just below this video from forbiddenplanet.com, and is in Forbidden Planet stores right now. Thanks for joining me, mate. It's great to see you.
Andrew, you're the best. Have a great one.
All the best. Take care. Cheerio. If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.